Welcome to the Chamber Talk Show. It's a universal topic, and it has happened to the best of us. Thank you, ladies, for joining us. I have Dr. April here. I have Dr. Nakia, Dr. Tanya, Dr. Isabel, and myself. I am Dr. Tamika. And again, we want to welcome you to the Chamber Talk Show. We are talking today about cheating. And that's a major subject, ladies. What do you say? First of all, I am joined by so many therapists, and I'm thankful. But a lot of people have reached out to us about this topic. I am being inboxed like crazy. Why do people cheat? Why do people cheat, Dr. April?
Well, in my personal opinion, people cheat because they want to. To me, there's no other, explanation for it. You do it because you want to. What do you think, doctors?
I think people cheat because they lack the desire and or the capability of being honest with themselves and the relationship that they're in to discuss or express what their real needs are and think they're supposed to be held to a certain standard or social expectation. Instead of saying this is not working for me, then they just go and cheat on the side, because there are plenty of people that would be in open relationships, but a lot of folks just don't think it's acceptable.
Okay. Dr. Nakia, what are your thoughts?
I agree with both of the other doctors. The idea that either people want to or they're just not, they don't feel comfortable expressing themselves or being honest. And I think to that second point, I think a lot of times it has to do with self-esteem, worthiness, that I can ask for what I want and get what I want, that I matter, what I want matters. I think sometimes too, it's more of an attachment issue. Sometimes I think there's people who aren't comfortable in close relationships or don't feel they're worthy of love or think if someone really knew them, they wouldn't love them. And I think sometimes that plays out in these ways where people try to self-sabotage, or in other ways inadvertently, damage relationships.
Okay. Dr. Isabel.
I'm going to throw a curveball. Maybe fidelity is not for everybody. I think it could be something of the old school and an idea, a concept that was created to be protective of humans, and that's all great. But I think that there are polyamorous couples, and I think more and more we're seeing that. So again, we have to be expansive in our thinking, and how realistic do I want to stick to this person for the rest of my life? But can I have a couple here and there? Because this one's my unicorn, but I still want to mess around with a couple horses and different kinds of horses, So, it's complicated. Now, there are those swans that stay together for life, and I respect that. And the question is more for the swan that deviated, right? And it could be a lot of other things. But I think that to cluster everybody together into this form of fidelity is a lot.
Okay, so let's look at some stats. I did a little research, and it said 21% of men and 13% of women at some point in their lifetime has committed infidelity. So there's this imbalance. More men commit infidelity according to the research than women. Why do you guys think that? And then talk about some of your own experiences. Can you remember some things? Because I'm going to actually bring up some signs that I've been looking at for people to actually tell if their mate may be cheating. And I thought it was absolutely insane. So go ahead. Let's talk, ladies. Dr. April.
Well, I think for me, I'm not a cheater. So I never was a cheater. I'm the type that I can't do more than one person at one time. So I tend to give my all to that one person. And for whatever reason, if it doesn't work out, that's it. I'm not going to go find someone else to talk to on the side. To me, that's too much energy. It's too much work, number one. So that's never been a thing for me, but I have been cheated on in the past, and that's not a good feeling. That's something that's devastating. Especially if you're the type of person that you've given your all to someone and expected that in return for them to turn around and cheat on you. That can be a hard blow to deal with and to get over.
All right. So Dr. Tanya, you counsel couples and you talked to me yesterday about relationships. that's big for you. What are your experiences with those couples?
Well, I have had experience with couples across the entire spectrum. And, I'm an old lady and I've had experiences myself across the entire spectrum, And what I find to be the thing I work with the most is having a person understand, where are you before you even enter a relationship? What relationship are you having with yourself? You got to have your relationship with yourself is the first relationship. Then if you can be honest with yourself, then you can be honest with whoever you encounter, because um, you don't have to be in the traditional relationship that we've been socialized to be in, but folks will do that, just like with cards and everything else, because they want acceptance. A lot of folks want to be in a committed relationship, like what you're speaking of, Dr. April. However, they have unresolved mental health issues like abandonment issues. So they
Mhm.
are afraid to put all of their eggs in one basket. What happens if I fall and the eggs get broken? Then I'm all alone. So it's across the entire spectrum. I had one of the funniest things that came to me, if I have a second here. I've had, because I'm a relationship specialist, and I've had men, to get onto your statistics, I've had men to call me to ask me to teach them language to speak with their partner about it being okay for them to cheat, to help them justify why they were cheating. Of course, that goes against my sense of integrity,
Mhm.
for dishonesty. So I have found myself teaching the language of polyamory. If this is not what you want, what do you want and why do you want it, and how do you approach a partner to get that thing? And so I spent a lot of time with that here recently, with more men than women.
Right. And I'm hearing more and more about open relationships. So I looked up some information on signs that people can actually, to detect if their partner is cheating. One of them was that they frequently will pick a fight with you so that they can go out and spend more time with the other person. Dr. Nakia, what do you say to that?
And this is one of those things, because in my work, I'm a clinical psychologist, and in my work of, doing therapy over the years, it's one of these things that as a therapist, you sometimes have to be in tune with how you feel about things. And for me personally, cheating to me is there's so many things to me that it just goes against my basic ideas about human trust and love. So when I hear like, picking an argument so you can go out and be with the other person, how dishonest that is in the moment, I sometimes have to kind of manage my own bias, right? And what I might think about somebody who makes that problem solving decision, like this is the best course of action. But I think sometimes people get, that the back of the brain, that survival brain, whatever it's going to do to try to protect you. Meanwhile, our frontal cortex is there to help us think things through. So somebody who's thinking like, let me pick this fight so I can get out of the house and then go see this other person, they're not thinking with their most kind of logical, rational part of their brain. So I think thinking about how that works when people are in that fight or flight mode, or it's all lust or whatever, helping people gain that awareness that you're being your whole self here. You're acting from a very basic, primitive part of yourself. And then how do you grow into this more full adult mature way where you can say like, this might not be for me, to you guys' point, right? Monogamy is not for everyone. So how honorable is that to just say like, I like you, but I like other people too. If you're okay with that, we can hang out. If you're not, I
Right.
mean, that's just so honorable
We're
to
gonna
do.
come back to that too, Dr. Nakia, talking about open relationships in just a minute. And I know a lot of people are against it, but sadly in this day and time, a lot of people are for it. So Dr. Isabel, you are a nurse practitioner, physically, mentally, the body. How much does it weigh on you when you find out that your significant other, if you're not in agreement with it, is actually cheating on you and stepping out?
Well, I personally, thank God, don't have that problem, but I see it play out a lot with my patients. And my patients are 90% of them are pregnant. So I specialize in high risk obstetric care. And these patients, a lot of the times, get pregnant and it's not planned, it's not desired. And a lot of times this is the road that they will have to walk by themselves, because these men are not around after they got pregnant. So that love, that lust, that desire has plummeted and it's gone, and there's no more utility in the relationship, right? So for me, I deal with a lot of depression. I deal a lot of it. The problem is very complicated because women need a lot of support, and how they're going to get it moving forward in this pregnancy and after they deliver, that's a question for her and her significant other, father of the baby, to be very tight and have really good communication, right? So mental health definitely goes down. The sense of self-esteem, the arrival of disease because of the depression. So what happens is that then women start to become less active because of the depression. They're less active, they'll gain weight, they'll have high blood pressure, diabetes, heart attacks, strokes. So by the time they hit 40, 45, 50, I mean, these constant insults, these emotional insults will continue to bring down the woman. So, this is why it's so important to have these conversations with young ladies about how, you can't expect anyone else to be in charge of your emotions except yourself, right? So to hold someone accountable for fidelity at a young age or through the trajectory of a lifetime, it's a lot. So to protect yourself, I think it's really important to have these very honest conversations and prepare women not to not have faith or not trust, but to know that these things do happen, and what are we going to do about it, and how are we going to handle it so that we don't get depressed or suffer bad adverse outcomes like being dependent on a significant other. Now you're living in a shelter, now you're living in your car because you were so insulted that you can't depend on this person anymore, right? So there's so much to talk about, but you definitely see the effects of mental health.
Yes.
So, and it's a topic that affects nearly all of us. Let's share some personal experiences, if you will, of some times when you have sat on the other side of the, I mean, you counsel, you talk to people about their significant other and people cheating. What about some of your experiences?
Can I tell you one? Can I say?
Yes.
So I have two very interesting cases. I had a patient who was a born again Christian, was married to a born again Christian. She was a woman of the faith and been married for about 25, 30 years. And once she hit her midlife, she felt she was bored and she had to go out. This Instagram, social media got to her. And she said she started asking her husband for a chance to get out. And, she was FOMOing, fear of missing out. And she was just getting really down with the fact that she wasn't being experiential of her midlife. So long story made short, she had a one-night stand or a couple of thrills with a young man and got pregnant. And her husband has a church, and her husband didn't know what to do. Like, I love you, I want to take you in, but now I have to face the church, the congregation. And how do we do that? Do we tell them about the infidelity, right? So, long story made short, she decided that she was going to stop everybody's heartache, and she departed from the relationship. And her husband now still takes care of her, but she is no longer in the actual picture living within the church. And really quickly, one last patient of mine, she was in a marriage. This was her second marriage, and with her first husband, she was still having flings here and there. And what happened was that she ended up having an antibody response to pregnancy. And as everybody was asking her about the antibodies, we had to ask if the significant other could be tested. And her current significant other was tested, and he was negative. So none of us knew why these antibodies were present. And I finally had a very sincere conversation with her, and I said, hey, you just got to let me know. Is there anyone else in there? Because this is going to impact the health of your unborn child.
Well, and you mentioned this actual situation there's so much more to cheating than just the physical, because it starts
Mhm.
somewhere. It starts with a conversation. Let's talk about it,
Mhm.
Dr. April.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's more or less being able to have that effective communication with your partner
Mhm.
to see what's the pet peeves, what's going on, what's causing this disconnect here. So once you have that outlined, then you can try to work together to form some type of compromise to be
Right.
able to, get past it. But what if you can't? The thing about it is if that person wants to do that, regardless of how many conversations you have, they're going to find a way to go out and do that. So then you have you being stuck, being, heartbroken and things like that. That's when you have to pick up those pieces and figure out, okay, I can't control another person, but I can control how I respond and how I react to this
Mhm.
situation. This person has chosen to hurt me, so I can't continue to allow that to happen. So now let me figure out how I can get myself together so I can be okay and get past this.
Right. So
Mhm.
cheating, it starts. It starts. So you come in contact with a person, and then there's that emotional aspect, Dr. Tanya.
Mhm.
Explain. You've talked to so many couples, but it starts possibly with maybe texting. That's big
Mhm.
now. Social media,
Mhm.
Mhm.
inboxing is
Mhm.
huge. How do you
Yeah.
how do you talk to your particular client in regards to that? Because now social media has blown up, and a lot of people are connecting through social media.
Mhm. It's ironic that you would say that. I literally just had something with a client of mine, very, very similar. Met someone outside, at a social event, had a good time, exchanged, social media connections, and then they continue that conversation over that particular, social media. And just the denial of what you are doing. See, cheating doesn't just start with the act. Cheating starts with your thoughts. You don't just you know start cheating and had no will and no thought about it.
Mhm.
So it didn't start when it presented itself in that particular situation. Cheating had started way before you even met the person maybe you possibly cheated with. Cheating starts with dissatisfaction. Cheating starts with disconnection. Cheating starts with a failure to express your needs. So, before you even meet the person that you physically cheat with, you have already cheated intellectually
Yeah.
through having self conversations about what you're not getting where you are. The wish I could have had a did. You know what I mean? And so then, as long as that brews in the undercurrent, then there's something that comes up, and then you start acting on it.
Okay.
Because when you're in a relationship, it doesn't mean you lose that sense of admiration for other people. You can look at someone and say, "Oh wow, he's handsome," or "She's cute," or "They're hot," but you're not getting ready to say, "Oh, let me go over there and see if I can't cheat with them." You know. So if you did that, then no one would ever have a fidelity relationship. So
Okay.
that cheating starts intellectually before you ever encounter a person that you're gonna cheat with.
Okay. So Dr. Isabel and Dr. Nakia, one of the signs that your mate is cheating, they begin to criticize you. That was one of the things that the researchers found. They begin to criticize you. So mentally, it has a major impact on you. So should people be wary of that? If your mate or significant other or your spouse begins to criticize you for every little thing, since that is one of the warning signs.
Mhm.
I would say that is sort of when we get into the slippery slope of emotional abuse kind of stuff, right? I mean, I guess if you have a feedback you want to give your partner, that's reasonable, right? That's communication. I like when you do this or you don't do this, and I want these are my desires or needs. That's an open discussion. But if your partner's starting to just criticize you, and really what it's harboring is their need to go outside the relationship and justify it. I think that goes back to some basic values, and also in the early stages, really getting to know who you decide to commit yourself to before you get to that point. Because my guess is if you have a partner who's going to start criticizing you as a means to go outside the relationship, that's probably not the first time that person has showed those tendencies. And so I think some of it comes down to really picking the right person before you get into a committed relationship, and not being, having a blind eye for those signs early in. We know when you feel in love and the oxytocin gets going, you get connected, but that's the stage at which you also have to be a little bit critical, because sometimes, and I've heard this actually, in my work, that, someone later will say, I can't believe you cheated on me. And the person who has cheated will say, like, but you kind of knew how I was, or you knew how I felt about relationships. And so then you have to ask yourself, why did I connect myself? Is it my own abandonment issues? Is it my own attachment issues that this is the person I chose to commit myself to? So some of it is like work that you do even before you get to the point where you have this person who's being critical.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. All right. So do we have a male doctor that's about to join us? I
Yeah.
definitely want to hear his perspective, since again it's 21% of men and 13% of women that, of course, experience or actually indulge in infidelity at some point in their lifetime. So I thought that was pretty ironic, and so we'll wait on him to come in. But on the flip side of the coin, we talked about the criticism. They begin to stop complimenting you as well.
Mhm.
You remember that's big for a lot of women, because women need that reassurance, I think, as a female. What do you say, Dr. Isabel?
Yesterday I posted on intention versus behavior, and I'm trying to educate the public on watching and observing what people's actions are, so that you can dig a little bit deeper without having to ask. Because what happens is that you ask somebody, do you like A, B, C, or D? And they're always, the preemptive is always, what is going to be the correct answer, right? But if you watch people, they don't have a choice, and you get to make your own decisions. So back to what Dr. Nakia said, it's so important to evaluate the past so that you can make better choices for the future.
Absolutely.
All righty. So happy you could join us, Doctor, the only male on the panel today. So we want to hear from you, because more men apparently cheat than women, 21% to 13%, according to this one study. What do you say to that? Why do you think that's so, being a man yourself?
Oh, can I leave now? Oh wow. Well, when it comes to comparing, I think it's so many reasons why infidelity happens, and there's also a different reason when we're talking about marriage versus girlfriend boyfriend. Because to men, when in girlfriend boyfriend, uh, they're not as invested spiritually into that commitment, because in their minds, I'm not married, right? And it was several researchers, and I was involved in the research of GGI. We actually found that the girlfriend boyfriend relationship, when it comes to the male, his guilt was different than the married man's guilt. The married man's guilt was, oh wow, I'm really sorry of what I did, and I'm going to lose my wife, I'm going to lose my kids, my home, my house, my car, and everything, possibly my job. But with the girlfriend boyfriend, it's the guilt was not as intense as a married man. So there's so many there's so many reasons why we actually indulge in it. To compare, I can't really. I think I refuse to, as to say why it's more men than it is women, because I get these emails like, oh, hey, what do you mean? Women cheat just as much as men. They have this back and forth thing, but it is true. It is true that more men actually indulge in cheating and infidelity. I like to use both: cheating for girlfriend-boyfriend relationship and infidelity for marriage. Right?
Okay. All right. Thank you. And as we move closer to the close of the show, repeat offenders, people that do it often and then they apologize. And I really want to hear what you all have to say, particularly the therapist, on that. One thing that I learned when I was doing research on this, it says that the person turns the table and constantly accuses you of cheating. So if somebody is constantly accusing you of cheating, oftentimes they are the cheater. What do you say to that? And also, what do you say? I want you to address the repeat offenders. Do you walk away from the relationship? Are they truly sorry? What do you do? Dr. April.
Well, go ahead, Dr. Rao.
I mean, because I know you guys have been talking, so
Go ahead.
You know, just from the science point too, I just wanted to just bring that. I think too, there is times that you have to really think about a repeater, because this serial monogamous dater, this person actually, in most cases, really shouldn't be married, right? And they really know within themselves that they are a serial monogamous dater, right? And what happens is some of the advice that I may give to a man is that, you really have to know yourself and be honest to yourself. Because if you know that you're spending the majority of your time in the boyfriend-girlfriend arena, and you're spending majority of your time having significant others in your life, right? Then maybe that's your trait. Maybe your trait is, hey, I love, to have multiple women in my life, right? And what happens is that we meet this wonderful woman that meet a whole lot of our non-negotiable requirement needs, right? And it's like, oh my God, she's totally awesome, right? And then you end up getting married. But the thing is that you have not experienced being in a monogamous relationship, because you spent your girlfriend-boyfriend period of just being a serial monogamous dater, or not even in a relationship with a girlfriend. You just spend the majority of your time having several women in your life, right? And then you jump into a marriage without giving yourself, or without allowing yourself to detox from that, right? And what happens is later, the body, the brain, it yearns for the habit that we created. So we didn't get rid of that habit. We just met somebody that we really liked and got married with them without actually detoxing from that type of behavior, right? And next thing you know, we're back out doing the addiction that you have of having multiple women. And some people get pushbacks of calling it addiction, or just could that be a genetic a trait, right, of that person? But if it is a genetic trait, that's something that we can't ignore or lie to ourselves, right? Because we know that we love multiple people in our lives, right?
So my advice there, just stay single. I mean, that's just my advice.
But okay, so
stay single. Okay, so as we think,
absolutely. That is the end of my story. Is that you should not get married. You should stay single and do what you're doing, what makes you happy. But what happens is that you meet this one person and you're like, and yeah, sometimes you can change because you met this wonderful person, right? Sometimes. But you got to think about an addiction. You got to think about a habit. You got to think about something that you're doing constantly, and you haven't reconditioned the brain, right? And if you haven't reconditioned the plasticity, the neural a neural pathway, because you created a network in the brain, and that network says this is how we operate. So if you didn't clear that out, once you get married, it's not over. It's not gone, right? If you marry somebody and you're on drugs, and because you went to Hawaii and you can't get your drugs from your drug dealer right now, you're in Hawaii. But now when you come back to America, right, you're not you didn't, what's it called? You didn't help me.
Yeah. Well, it's still there. It's not gone overnight.
It's not gone overnight. Right. It's not gone overnight. So, I mean, that's just the science part. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. All right. So actually, we're getting ready to close, and I want to give the person who's watching, because a lot of people have reached out to me about the show, some coping strategies. whether they decide to stay with that partner that cheated or whether they decided to walk away. What do you say? And I'm going to go to each one of you as we close, and then Dr. April, of course, will close with an affirmation because we close every show with an affirmation. What do you guys say individually to that person, whether they decided to stay with the cheater or whether they decided to walk away from the cheater? Dr. April.
Oh, okay. So it's back on me.
It's back on you.
Well, I mean, to me, it's all in what you're willing to put up with. So I say to that woman, or that man, she has to decide how much she's willing to take in her relationship. What works best for her. Some people aren't ready to leave the relationship when they get cheated on. So if that's you, we pray for you. So you have to, decide what's best for you at that point.
Thank you, Dr. Tanya.
And for me, I would like to say something to the cheater and the cheatees that's out here, because it takes two to tango. And I would like to say, for anyone, no matter which side of the coin you're on, first of all, you have to know what your absolutes are. What are your negotiables and your non-negotiables are first. Then once you know that about yourself, you have to teach people how to treat you from that place. So if you allow a cheater to cheat on you, then you're teaching them it's okay to cheat on you because you're accepting them cheating on you. So you have to know your negotiables, your non-negotiables. You have to teach people how to treat you. And then also you have to, if you are the person that's doing the cheating, you have to know, I don't know if it's genetic, but I know we do train our brain to behave and to have the rest of ourselves to behave a certain way. There are so many communities and cultures and religions that is accepting of multiple relationships. There's religions that say you can have as many wives as you want, that you can take care of, you can have multiple families, all of that. So if that's who you genuinely are, and just know and be honest with yourself, it doesn't matter if you were raised up Baptist or Jehovah Witness or any of that. Know who you are and seek out what your needs are.
Absolutely.
And so there are communities of acceptance for each and every condition that we can imagine. So just know what your negotiables and non-negotiables are. Teach people how to treat you and go from there.
I love that. All right, Dr. Nakia.
I would say, and then this is again speaking of both sides of the equation, the person who gets cheated on and the person who cheated. I think we often operate from two basic emotions, fear or love. And I think if you're someone who's been cheated on, if you're operating from that place of fear, like, oh, I couldn't get anyone else, or I'm scared about the unknown, I don't think that's the best place to make a decision to stay. That might just take a little more working through, right? Because you don't want to stay in a situation just because you're afraid, because that has some other underlying things. But if it's love and I've forgiven this person and I see the good in them and I, feel like we can grow in love, then I think that's fine to stay. And similarly, if you're someone who cheats because you just love a lot of other people and you want to spread love, I mean, be honest about that with yourself. And then, to the other doctor's point, seek that out and have a good life and be happy and be honest. But if you're someone who's insecure and fearful that you're not enough or not good enough, or you have abandonment fears and that makes you act out by cheating, then I think that warrants some investigation.
Love it. I love it. I love it. Dr. Isabel.
And again, to Dr. Nakia's point, when my patients find out that, or they're suspicious that their significant others are cheating, I say to them, create a plan. You're either good with it or not good with it. If you're not good with it, don't say nothing. Find the evidence. Make sure that you have documented all the data that's factual. Create a plan and get out of that relationship safely, because you got to take care of your kids.
Got it. All righty. All right. So, sir, doctor.
Yeah, man, that was just totally awesome. I agree with every last one of those. You're so right, because it's so important to make sure that you create that plan. Make sure that you have an scapegoat, and make sure that the kids and everybody, that you have that plan where you're going to go, and not jeopardize to your closest family where he can go to, right? So make sure that your plan is a distance. right? And not amongst your family members, because you don't want to get your family members involved too as well. So absolutely. And the first thing we would want to say is, yes, if you think you want to stay, then definitely you have to have counseling, right? And so that's the first thing. But the one main thing is to find out why. That is so important, even though we say, oh, well, he did it, but it's important to discover why it happened. How did this happen? Right? Because it's not only, and not to find out why it happened to stay in the relationship, right? It's important to find out why it happened just for yourself too, as well, in the future relationship that you go in, right? And to understand, how did this happen? Was it both of us, right? As Doctor said earlier, it takes two, to tangle. So, what part did I play in this too as well? Right. So that's why it's really, really important to discover that, what really happened here. And from there, we can determine whether I'm going to stay or not. Right. And yes, again, what the other doctor said, it is important to be honest to self. And, too, this message is to the men. Look, this is a whole new millennium. And this paradigm shift tells us, hey, there's so many different types of relationships out there now. Right. That gives you an opportunity to be honest now, to say, hey, I want to be in a serial monogamous relationship. I want to be in a, what's the new ones? Help me out, guys. Polyamory relationship, and that is to be honest. Look, real fast. I met a young lady in Chicago. I'm originally from Chicago. I met a young lady in Chicago. We had a wonderful conversation. We were outside. And when we were getting ready to leave, I said, hey, can I have your telephone number? And I said, oh, wait a minute. Do you have a boyfriend? And she said, I have friends. So she gave me the option whether I wanted to be one of those friends, right? And I thought about it and I said, yes, I want to be one of those friends.
I like it. I love that. So the why, asking the why, I heard you guys say that, and I heard you guys say you decide to stay, then maybe seek therapy, get some help, work through those processes. And I think I feel a part 2 coming on, because we didn't really hit a lot of the mental impact, because if you think about it, a lot of people have been killed as a result of cheating. And we haven't even gotten deeper into this subject where we can talk about people bringing harm to other people. So I smell a part 2 to this, and we'll talk more about it. But I definitely appreciate all of you doctors joining us today. We, again, like I said, I see a part 2 coming on. I want to end with an affirmation from Dr. April, because we do this every show, and I think it's very important. Again, I thank you guys so much for joining the chamber. Dr. April, take us away.
Yes, the affirmation for today is, the perfect partner for me is available out there. The perfect partner for me is available out there.
So whatever perfect is for you, the perfect partner for me is available out there. So thank you guys for joining. I see a lot of the comments coming in and a lot of people sending me messages. We appreciate you guys for joining the Chamber Talk Show. And again, there will be a part 2. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you so much
Thanks for having me. Bye.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.